Hey, you're watching Water from Reddit. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's dive in. People who have been in a coma. What was it like waking up? Disorienting. Literally couldn't remember who or where I was for a few minutes. Felt super groggy, like I was severely hungover but without the nausea or pounding headache. My first thought, for some reason, was I'm in Colorado. Then I realized it was a hospital but didn't know why I was there. Edit. I'm in Mississippi, and unless my parents drove through it when I was little kid, I've never been to Coma. I spent about 7 weeks at the end of 2021 in ICU. I had perforated diverticulitis. After the first 2 surgeries of removing my guts, I went into septic shock and caught pneumonia. My organs started failing. I spent 14 days in a medically induced coma. I was on a ventilator and had a feeding tube down my nose. It's a long story. I have a lot of memories that were real to me, but they never actually happened. I thought I had been living on a houseboat for a long time. I thought my ex-wife adopted a set of twins from Australia. I remember a stranger living in the air ducts that was trying to poison me. I thought I had become a local sports TV news guy that got away with cussing a shitload. Strangers could walk on the walls and ceilings, but I could not. I thought I was in a jail hospital because of plagiarism charges. I also remember dying in a house fire and a separate incident where I drowned while on a DART bus. Those are just some examples. When I woke up, it took me days to realize I had a colostomy. It honestly took me months to sort out what really happened and what didn't. Also, months before I could actually walk again. Maybe septic shock had a lot to do with fucked up memories, but I was also heavily medicated. I have tons of those memories noted on my Notes app on my phone. Anyway, I am very thankful to the doctors at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. I got hit hard by the early alpha wave of COVID-19. In March-April 2020, I spent 38 days in hospital, 16 of those days in ICU on a ventilator. If you want to read my last long write-up including lung x-rays, you can find it here. The thing about being on a ventilator is that they have to give you heavy sedatives, which gives you ICU nightmares, non-stop vivid hallucinations, and I had those for 16 days straight. Waking up from it, thankfully, I don't remember much of that. They don't take you off the ventilator until you can maintain breathing and oxygen levels on your own. If you can do that, they remove the ventilator and then stop giving you heavy sedatives, and it takes a few hours for the heavy sedatives to wear off. For me, I remember them asking me orientation questions. What's your name? Do you know where you are? Do you know why you're here? I remember at first answering that I was in a veterinary animal clinic, which was clearly wrong. Then I thought I was in a hospital another town away, so close but still wrong. Then I finally answered correctly to all 3 questions. When I woke up, I couldn't walk or talk. I had lost 12 pounds being horizontal in ICU for so long, and I had some bad shakes in my hands, so I couldn't really do anything with my smartphone. Took a few days to get to a point where I could communicate with people and do simple things on my own, such as pushing the nurse call button on my bed. Even after all that, I still had 4 tubes in me, catheter, 3-port neck IV, nasal feeding tube, and nasal oxygen line. So it took a while to get all those pulled out. It was a pretty surreal experience. It's weird to feel like you basically got completely rebooted. It also reminds me of that old phrase, you never know how strong you can be until being strong is your only choice. I was in a coma for weeks as a result of meningoencephalitis when I was 8. As I was coming out of it, it felt like what I now know the worst hangover of my life. Headache and all, which checks out given the diagnosis. There was no dreaming. I didn't hear anything going on around me. It was just a long, dark, deep sleep. I had to relearn how to do almost all motor skills. But damn, muscle memory is an incredible thing, and I recovered really well. It's not like it is in the movies. It's violent, it's scary, it's ugly. An intoxicated driver put me into an 11.5-day coma in the ICU. I lost about 40 pounds in that time from atrophy. I woke up angry, violent, bruised, bloody, irrational, and fragile, which is not unusual. Traumatic brain injury, broken sternum, skull, shoulder, etc. I haven't been able to taste or smell a thing in 12+ years. Kinda messed up the whole momentum of my life up, until that point, as well as causing new, additional stress and heartache. Since then, things have gotten much better. I discovered music composition therapy while in recovery, though. I gave many years to writing music since. If you're interested, the album 9FM by artist 9FM is the music that I made during recovery. Silver lining, I guess, but the coma experience was ugly, not at all like we've been led to believe. For me, it was like turning on and off a light switch. One moment I was driving, the next moment I was in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar room. I couldn't make sense of anything and my head hurt. I was confused and suspicious and a little angry. I knew I wanted to leave immediately. I had no destination in mind. I couldn't quite make my body do anything helpful. I almost fell out of bed. It was unpleasant and frightening. I was told I was dead for several minutes before getting to the hospital, while being cut out of the vehicle. It's not possible to be sure how long I was dead. I'm still haunted by the lack of anything resembling an afterlife or the near-death experiences you read about. It was just non-existence. It makes me wonder if those other stories are just lies or fictions people have written for themselves to escape the void. Maybe there's a difference between traumatic brain injury coma and others. It's been almost 20 years, and there are still moments when the world blinks out for a few moments or becomes kind of different, and I think I might still be in a coma. It's hard to describe. I'm thinking that it was a bit of a slow process where I gradually started to become aware of my surrounding. I knew that I was in the hospital, and I sort of knew what had happened, but didn't know the full extent of what procedures I had done until I was aware for a bit of time. Like, I knew that I had a trach, but it wasn't until I was transferred to a skilled nursing facility that I noticed that I had a feeding tube. I discovered that when the night shift nurse came in to give me my night meds, and she flushed my feeding tube, and I asked her, "What's that? Is that a feeding tube?" How did I not know about that? I don't really recall much of my first few days at the SNF, but the CNAs who stuck around for a bit said that I was pretty out of it, and that they were scared to touch me since I was missing the right side of my skull. I was in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks following brain surgery after a hemorrhagic stroke. Was in a coma for just over a month, and it was just day by day to see if I would survive or not. It took me around 2-3 weeks to fully wake up, and it was not a pleasant experience. A lot of the time I thought the nurses were harming me, when in reality they were changing my tubes and altering my trachea, etc. I had a lot of what I know now were dreams, but I look back on them more as memories as they felt so real at the time. I also had a lot of sort of spiritual experiences, like being able to look at younger versions of myself, which was very, very strange. I was delirious at the time due to meds, illness, but I still remember being stood on a balcony with the doctors, nurses discussing how I hope they can make me better. This didn't happen, of course, but even now looking back, it feels real. If anyone has a specific question, I don't mind answering as it is a surreal experience, and people ask me about it a lot. I've been in 2 comas in 2 years, one for 3 days and the second for 9 days. With the first coma, I regained full consciousness as they were removing my central line, so weird pulling on my neck as I was opening my eyes. The nurse asked if I knew what happened, and I said, I collapsed in a laundromat. And she just said, no, and left the room. The second coma, I don't remember waking up per se, but I was 24 hours conscious on the ventilator, and let me tell you, that is a nightmare and a half. You are constantly choking, but have to relax because it's not going to stop. Anyway, during the coma, both times it was nothing but blackness. Like a blink, and suddenly I'm in a hospital bed. Hands down the most strange thing I've ever went through. Had no idea why I was even in the ICU in the first place. Didn't know where the fuck I was. I was actually convinced I was lying in my living room at my house, and just overall unable to process what was going on. It took me nearly a week of being told by doctors and family members what had happened to me before I finally comprehended the time frame of everything. On another note, the hallucinations I would experience during the coma when my sedation was lifted, slightly, were the most terrifying thing I have and hopefully ever will experience. Just real horrible shit with no clue what was happening. Was 90% sure I was actually dead, and that this was some sort of purgatory, probably a result of being on a ventilator and pumped with copious amounts of drugs to keep me alive. I still haven't fully processed everything. My husband was in a coma for 5 weeks. He says it was an unending series of truly terrible nightmares the whole time. Lots of different bizarre plot lines, but all with the common theme that he had to do or achieve something, or else he was going to be killed. So each scenario was a fighting for your life scenario. In the last one, he was smashing down walls to escape from monsters. And when he smashed down the last wall before he woke up, he smashed a wall that led into his ICU room. He said he looked around and saw himself there and heard a voice in his head say something like, "This is reality. All of your problems are in this room." And then the nightmares stopped and he was waking up. But waking up was not just a one-off event. It was waking up lots of times, being confused, having us talk and try to explain to him what was happening, and then falling back asleep, waking up again, until finally he was more conscious and understood more of what was going on and remembered what we told him about where he was and why he was there. Then he had to spend another 3 weeks conscious, on the ventilator, before the ventilation was finally able to be removed. Completely unable to move, unable to talk. He was never alone for the whole 5-week coma, but he doesn't remember seeing or hearing anything except his nightmares during that time. We sang to him, we talked to him, we played his favorite music, gave him massages, washed him, moved his limbs, lay our heads next to his on his pillow. He wasn't ever aware of any of it. He has PTSD from the whole experience, as well as a number of other health complications, but he's alive. Thanks for watching Water from Reddit. Subscribe to Water from Reddit, and don't miss the next wave.